Retirement rarely falls apart because of one bad decision. It shrinks because of hundreds of comfortable ones.
We found research from Rush Memory and Aging Project where they took a cohort of people and analyzed them through a long period of time. And they found that people in this study that had purpose had a 30% chance of living longer than those without purpose. So this is a critical part of you to prevent you from drifting in retirement.
The danger of retirement drift isn't that it changes your life overnight. It's that one day you wake up and you realize the world has become a much smaller place than you ever intended it to be. You know, the other day I had the opportunity to play golf with someone who I'd never played with before. And she and I got to talking like as you do, as other people are taking their carts and hitting their balls. And neither of us are playing particularly well, to let you know that piece of it. But she was telling me that she had a 101-year-old mother and a 105-year-old aunt that don't live too far away. She has an older brother and a younger sister, and she was the middle child. None of the three children have ever had children of their own. So there is no legacy beyond the three of them. And they split the week of 7 days by the three of them taking care of the mother and their aunt. And we were talking about things that, you know, I asked her a lot of questions. You know, what do you do? How do you stay connected? You know, what's your life like? And she started going through it and she paused at one point and she said, you know, sometimes I actually feel like I'm drifting. And I said, drifting? You're taking care, you play golf, you have a circle of friends, you play cards on Wednesday nights, you have a brother and sister that you're highly connected to, you have a 105-year-old aunt, a 103-year-old or 101-year-old mother. Like, your life sounds really full. And she said, you know, I'm drifting in the area where I don't feel that my heart is attached to someone or something like it used to be. And I thought about that for a minute. I thought she was going to divulge that she had met someone. She had a significant other in her life. She was going to tell me a story. Instead, she pulled out her phone and she showed me a picture of Raven. Raven is a 12-month-old chocolate lab that afternoon she was going to pick up. She lit up like all the fireworks you saw on 4th of July. Like, her heart was so full that she was going to get this little puppy. And I said to her, what made you think? Like, how is this the big connection? She said, never had a dog, always wanted a dog. I'm getting a dog. And to me, that was just such a point in her story that she figured out where she was drifting. She figured out what she needed. And it wasn't maybe something traditional. It certainly wasn't where I thought the story was going to end. But to see her face and her commitment and conviction to this puppy, who was adorable, by the way, it just warmed my heart. And it showed me that drift happens even with people with a full life.
Well, the first thing that I want to talk about on this topic, or we want to talk about from our notes, is that retirement drift begins long before you notice it. I mean, it's not something that people think they can get because we've earned this phase of life. We finally stepped away from the job. We have this independence. We have this free time. But all of a sudden, days start to blend together. You don't really have any real super reason to get up in the morning other than that you woke up naturally. So you have your coffee and you watch TV. You don't have urgency anymore because you don't have your job that created a morning process for you where you had to go in, you had to do meetings and all of that. Goals lose their deadlines because you don't really have any new goals, but nothing feels obviously wrong.
Yeah.
You just think that this is how I'm supposed to feel. And we were recording a bunch of videos today. One of the things that I mentioned on a previous video is that you can easily mistake retirement drift for aging. I'm supposed to feel this way. I'm supposed to sleep till I want to. I'm supposed to watch TV all day long. I'm supposed to not have deadlines. I'm supposed to not have any pressure. But that's not healthy.
Right. You know, the next point, retirement drift often hides behind pleasant days, was really the precipice for my story about this new friend that I met. Because, you know, her days were perfectly fine. No problem really seemed that serious. They've divided and conquered helping their aging family. She had some wins. She's a good golfer, plays good some days, bad some other days, stays connected to her community and environment, but something was uncomfortable in her world, and she really took stock. And I talked to her a lot about our pillars. She really took stock with this emotional connection piece. So retirement drift can sneak up on you even when everything looks fine and pleasant. If one of the pillars is not anchored, and for her, it was heart-centered, and it wasn't heart-centered with another human necessarily, but she wanted something to pour her love into because she still had a big reserve of love.
I love that.
And it really was heartwarming for me as we talked about her physical wellness and her mental wellness and her relationships and her, familial relationships and her community and giving back. And she checked all the boxes in a very pleasant way.
Yeah,
except for the one.
Now she has the dog now?
Picked it up last Tuesday.
Have you seen her since then?
No, I didn't get to play golf this week because I had wedding dress problems.
So how old was the dog? You said 12 months?
12 weeks.
12 weeks.
Brand
you
new
said 12
baby.
months, 12 weeks. So I wonder how she's doing with a 12-week-old dog, which is a lot different than Ruby, who's asleep in her crate, who's almost 3 years old.
Yeah.
So
12-week-old puppy.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah. Adorable.
But you do feel like you have purpose, you have a schedule, you have something to do. So I like that.
Something to pour your heart into.
Okay. Something that happens when you enter this phase of life, the discovery years, is that retirees become more consumers than creators. And when I say consumers is, you get up in the morning and you turn the TV on, maybe you read the paper, you listen to the news, you scroll through your phone, you're consuming all day long and you're not creating like you did during your career. You couldn't go to work and sit and watch TV all day. You had to do your job. So you were creating, you were getting things done, you were doing things that were important. But watching replaces participating. The average number of hours that people over the age of 65 spend watching TV each week is 38 hours.
Yeah, it's a full-time job.
That's a full-time job. That's retirement drift. When you do that, all of a sudden you realize, a week or a month or 6 months or a year, you're caught up on Netflix, but what have you really done? What have you accomplished? What have you achieved? How do you feel good about yourself? And all of a sudden, contribution to society feels very distant.
Well, yeah, this idea that entertainment fills your empty hours, any form of entertainment, we typically pick on television,
right?
But any form of entertainment that fills your empty hours is typically consumption. You go to a bar and hang out with a bunch of friends. It's typically consumption, not contribution. Certainly TV, consumption, not contribution, So you might want to consider just charting for a day. How many things have I consumed and how many things have I contributed to? And decide for yourself what a good ratio would be.
Yeah.
I mean, we are in the consumption form of life, but it should maybe equal contribution.
Yeah.
But it'd be a good way to put an equation to that.
Well, yeah, we do a fair amount of contribution. We're doing this videos and all of that, but we also do, we have some downtime,
Sure.
which is important.
And we, consume social media. We consume, one TV show, probably
a day.
Probably one show a day, not one season though. Like
No,
we
no.
have never, I don't know if we've ever binged anything.
Sunday we binged. We watched 2 episodes.
Oh, we did. That was not considered binging in modern world, but in Mark's world, that's binging.
Okay. Well, here's another thing that happens that you get a lot of during your career, during, the years that you're at work, is you get constant feedback. You get feedback on your success, your job, your relationships, you're in team meetings, you're working on projects together. You're getting a lot of feedback. When you reach this phase, if you're not contributing and you're just consuming, there is no feedback. You're not really integrating yourself into any place where you can get feedback. And, the easy solution to that is to volunteer or something. But you've got to find a way to contribute to society and also get feedback. Good job. What about if we do it this way? And now you're collaborating. But I think that when you get like that and you're not getting feedback, you stop growing because you're not really looking for any way to get better at what you're doing because you're not doing anything, you're just consuming.
So it's a funny juxtaposition, this phase of life. You're in charge, you set the tone, you set the vibe, you set the tempo, you find the rhythm. Nobody else, you. So if you don't set the tone, find the vibe, find the rhythm, it is on you to then realize that you're in drift. And you really don't see it coming because there are no external forces. No one's going to call me at the end of the day and say, well, it's not true because I'm planning 2 more weddings. So I do get calls at the end of the day, making sure I completed my task. But nobody calls you at the end of the day and says, did you hit these markers? Where are you on your goals? How are you on your growth and development? And if you're a person who was conditioned to that, you miss it. You kind of feel saucy and free without it.
Right.
But then the drift does set in and you have to be mindful of it.
Yep, I agree. By the way, the first link below in the show notes is the 1-year retirement checklist. If you haven't downloaded that before, it's free. Please do that now. It's one of our most popular downloads that people enjoy the most. Another thing that can get you to start drifting is in the area of relationships. Your relationships will begin to fade and disappear if you don't treat them with intention. And when I say intention, it's on you to make the call. Don't always leave it up to everybody else. Well, she never calls me or he never calls me. Well, maybe they're busy. Maybe they're not good at that. But they're a friend. So if you need to be the person that's organizing the coffee, that's organizing the breakfast, that's organizing the golf outing, be that person, because you don't want to let these relationships fade, and they will over time if you're not reaching out. And I think it's important to realize that, to not feel like, well, I'm always the person that reaches out. Well, that's what it might take for you and your relationship with that person.
Yeah. And I would say if you're in a committed relationship with a spouse, partner, or significant other, you should have the conversation. I mean, Mark is a self-declared introvert. However, I will tell you probably 90% of the time that we go out with other people, or we make a dinner date, or we make a golf date with another couple, or I would say about 90% of the time, you're instigating that. Mm-hmm. I make the phone calls, I organize things, I get everybody on board with what the plan is, but it comes to you first that you need that social interaction. As I've gone through retirement, I am a wildly extroverted person and super social, but I so value like the quiet time. Even yesterday, we've been kind of through the mill over the past 7 months, and I had to drive to Philly and do a dress fitting, and it was just kind of crazy. And I finally got home, and you were going over to see neighbors of ours. Do you want to come? They're watching the soccer game. I'm gonna, have a drink. Mark doesn't drink, so like have an iced tea or Diet Coke or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a bath. I mean, it's 4:00 in the afternoon. I've been on the road all day and had pins stuck in me trying to get these wedding dresses together, and I felt really good about holding my ground and saying, no, I'm not going to go. Yeah. And you went anyway, which was great. But so my point is relationships take intention and also communication if you're in a committed relationship.
Well, the one thing I would say is that, yes, I'm a self-described introvert, but I do a lot of extroverted things with intention so that my relationships stay alive. Right. I haven't seen Billy in a month.
Right.
And he lives 4 houses away. So it was on me to say to him, hey, what are you doing? I heard you were in Chicago. You're back today from work. Do you want to sit around and watch the soccer game together? Yeah, come on over. I wouldn't have gone if I hadn't done that.
Right.
And he loved that I was there. I loved that I was there. So the point of this is you've got to have intention behind your relationships or they will fade.
Right. The next point is, retirement really removes more decisions than most people realize. There are fewer choices, and fewer choices reduce engagement. Days become highly predictable. Mark and I work together Monday and Wednesday. I play golf on Tuesday. Thursday, we do a little bit of self-care, maybe play 9 holes together. Friday is supposed to be a free day. We're behind on videos, so Thursday and Friday become more work days for us right now. But they are relatively predictable. So with those decisions, being removed, the fewer choices, we're going to be in the house probably 4 out of 5 days this week.
Well, you can certainly get caught up in drift in this phase of life because your days start to become just automatic. Life feels automatic. I get up, I have coffee, I watch TV, maybe go for a walk the dog, maybe go out to lunch, maybe go hit golf balls. But there's no structure or anything to force you to get creative, to force you to be curious. We're very curious about our physical wellness, and we go to the gym 3 to 5 days a week, depending upon what we have going on. We're curious about what we eat. We're curious about the food we put in our bodies. We're curious about meditating. We're curious about journaling. We're curious about a lot because we don't want to drift.
Right.
So when you're curious.
But we have drifted.
We drifted this past weekend, yeah. But drifting for a day or two is okay, especially if you do it on purpose. Like we'll just say, you know what, this weekend, we don't want any company. We're not going out at all. We're going to watch a little TV, just going to hang out, maybe go to the beach and read a book. I don't think that's drifting. That's resting. So we force that on ourselves.
Maybe that's a good distinction to make to people. Drifting, resting.
Well, you need
intention.
Rest. Yeah. One way, the thing we want to talk about now is retirement drift will end once you start redesigning your life. And what does that look like? Well, if you feel like you're drifting and the days are moving from one to the other and nothing's really happening, it really begins with a little bit of structure. One of the things that your job did for you, your career, is it gave you some structure, whether you liked it or not. And so many people say, I got to get away from that. I don't want to have to get up early. I don't want to have to go to meetings. I don't want to have people tell me what to do. People managing my calendar. Okay. All of a sudden you get freedom. You get agency over your time. You are in complete control over what you do. Well, if you don't have any structure or any good healthy habits, all of a sudden you're going to start to drift. So you start with the morning. Start making your mornings the time where you get up consistently at the same time and you do a little journaling. Maybe you meditate. Maybe you watch an educational thing on TV. But start having a little bit of structure. Set up a weekly coffee on Fridays with a bunch of friends of yours. But without having that, without having a destination or purpose, you're going to drift.
Yeah, 100%. That was a good point.
Okay, let's take a look at some questions our team got from our YouTube channel. This was from a video. After 60, I finally asked myself this question. This is from C. Clancy. Hi, I've been enjoying your videos. Which video explains your 7 pillars? Thank you. I don't know. As a matter of fact, I don't think we've actually ever done a video on the 7 pillars, but it sounds to me like we should. I mean, we do have the masterclass coming up soon that you'll hear about if you're on our email list, where we actually take people through a course of the 7 pillars. But they also recently just changed.
Yeah, they have. So I think we did the 7 pillars initially. So go back 3 or 4 years and maybe even just put that into the YouTube search. I know that we haven't done the new format, the new 7 pillars. So C. Clancy 1677. Good idea.
But I think let's do a video on that. Okay. Here's a question on the video, 10 unexpected retirement facts no one tells you, from Joanne Lamar. She just had a question on a previous video. Thanks for all your questions, Joanne. Did you both retire around the same time? My husband is over 70 and he still is clinging to his job. I retired last year. Do you have any advice for us to come together? Yeah, I mean, you've got to have an open conversation. So you retired. last year. Yeah, I think that just, asking him straight out, why are you still working? How much longer will you work? And maybe you can find a way to go back to work yourself by doing a little bit of volunteering. But also, I think instead of asking, when are you going to retire, maybe start dreaming and imagining what these discovery years could be like for you. Do you guys want to travel? Do you want to move? Do you want to downsize? And all of a sudden now, it's not so much about when he's going to retire. It's when you're going to start these new things, and it might start some new excitement in your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I would say, Joanne, is during your year or year plus or year till he decides to retire, start to structure your days, your weeks, your months, make sure you have your goals aligned, make sure you're clear with what's important to you, and then begin the conversation with him, what's important to him. But to answer your first question, we retired at the same time for very different reasons, but at the same time.
Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, watch this next video, a solo video by Jody. Don't retire until you get these 4 things right. Jody lays out 4 key areas of your life that you need to get right first before you retire, and it's going to help you from drifting in the future. So watch this one next.